Welcome back to Cosi's Odyssey, or the Odyssey in a Day. Next up, Odysseus and his men arrive at the land of King Aeolus, a wealthy king who presses them for tales of wartime glory. After about a month of this, even Odysseus gets sick of banging on about his own achievements and begs the king to let them all go. The king gives them a bag containing all of the wins, and off they sail. When Odysseus and his men land on the next island, thanks to this gassy bag, Odysseus sends a scout ahead of them to see what's what. See, he's learning. The scout stumbles across the city of Telepylos, meets the lovely locals, and is, of course, promptly eaten. Odysseus and his men roll up to Telepylos to exact their revenge. This is where they meet the Lystragonians, the tribe of man-eating giants who have just chomped their buddy. The man-eating giants start using the ships as target practice, flinging massive boulders at Odysseus and his men, sinking all ships but one. The lucky last ship winds up on another idyllic island. Yeah, another one. This one is inhabited by Circe, the famous witchy goddess who Odysseus shacks up with for a whole year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After a few days of sitting around, Odysseus decides they need to explore the island. So he splits the group in half, he leading one and his pal Eurylochus leading the other. Eurylochus and his gang hear Circe singing and call out to her. She welcomes them inside, all except Eurylochus, who lurks outside, thanks to some very healthy cynicism. Circe presents the rest of the men with a sumptuous feast, which she has, of course, spiked. After the men gorge themselves, Circe whacks them with her wand and ushers them towards the sty, because the men are now pigs. And I'm not saying that in a men are pigs, men are trash kind of way. I'm talking literal, actual, curly-tailed pigs. Eurylochus has seen all of this go down, so rushes back to Odysseus, who, ever the man of action, grabs his weapons and asks his mate the fastest way to Circe's palace. On his way there, another god throws his oar into the whole situation. Out pops Hermes from behind some bushes. The messenger god grabs Odysseus' hand, giving him an herb called moly, which will render Circe's spells useless, telling Odysseus that when she hits him with her magic wand, that he needs to unsheath his sword and rush at her like he's about to stab her. It's like a game of chicken with two ludicrously phallic objects. Of course, Circe's response to this near-death experience is to go mad with lust and jump his bones. I wish I was making that part up, but that's actually exactly how Homer describes it going down. Circe shrieks when she sees Odysseus' sword and falls to her knees, telling him to sheath his sword and then let us go to bed together, and embracing there, let us learn to trust in one another. Odysseus doesn't exactly jump at the opportunity, given his men are still oinking outside. He forces Circe to swear an oath to wind her neck in with the spells, and then they hop into bed together. After Circe's carnal needs are satiated, off they trundle to the pig pen. She anoints them with another potion, and bam, they're men again. They all park up at Circe's for ages, feasting, frolicking, and recovering. After a whole year has gone by, the men approach Odysseus, reminding him of the whole homecoming thing. Circe hits him with a side quest before waving him off, telling him that he needs to go to the Underworld and speak to the blind seer Tiresias before he can leave. What happens next is a big old process involving libations and some light necromancy, but the two key things are Tiresias gives him a slap on the wrist for being such an arrogant prick with the whole Polyphemus debacle, and tells him that he and his crew cannot, under any circumstances, touch the cattle belonging to the sun god Helios. When Odysseus and his men get back to Circe's island, she isn't exactly brimming with good news. She immediately launches into more warnings, advising Odysseus how best to combat the next round of monsters he's going to come up against. First up, we've got the sirens. Beautiful, dangerous creatures that lure sailors to their death with their song. These gals are a group of mythological creatures that have had one of the most extreme PR makeovers of all time. I mean, it's like some archaeological revenge body nonsense. Odysseus comes up with an alternative plan. His crew plug up their ears with beeswax and tie him to the mast without any beeswax. He tells them that no matter how much he struggles, they are not to untie him. As he starts to hear their siren song, he thrashes about and begs to be set free. But thankfully, his men ignore him, and they manage to sail by unscathed. The sirens are so devastated by this that they throw themselves into the ocean and drown. quite a heartbreaking and unceremonious end for these gals. And here we are, between a rock and a hard place. Now this saying actually comes from this moment in the Odyssey, when Odysseus and his men sail through the strait that lies between Scylla and Charybdis. Now Charybdis was this massive whirlpool that sucked in seawater and vomited it out 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Opposite her, we have Scylla, a ravenous monster who had 6 heads, razor-sharp teeth, a wildly long set of necks, and 12 feet. She also apparently yelped like a dog. These guys worked in tandem, devouring unsuspecting sailors that traveled through the strait between them. I like to think of them as a toxic but lovable pair of female friends. Odysseus and his men sail into this strait, Odysseus having already made the call to stick by Scylla's side, sentencing a decent chunk of his men to death, rather than lose them all on the bottom of the ocean floor.
Homer describes the way that they actually get to see Charybdis in action. Odysseus and his men actually witness the ocean floor during one of her gurgles.
They sail past Scylla's cliffs, and almost immediately, 6 of the strongest, most able-bodied of Odysseus's men get chomped. Odysseus and whatever's left of his crew arrive on Thrinacia, where the divine flocks of Helios are waddling around. Circe essentially reiterates Tiresias's warning, reminding Odysseus that as long as he and his crew leave the cattle unharmed, they might actually make it home in one piece. In short, Odysseus's men ignore his warnings, eat the special cows. Helios absolutely kicks off and demands that Zeus take vengeance on his behalf. The king of the gods sends a horrific storm their way, killing each crew member, destroying their ship, and leaving Odysseus looking like Kate Winslet at the end of Titanic. And then Odysseus arrives at Calypso's island, and we are up to speed.